What happens when a billionaire, betrayed, broken, and sitting alone on a roadside bench in the quiet rain meets a poor girl who carries nothing but kindness in her heart? This is the story of Patrick, a man who had everything money could buy but nothing his soul truly needed, and Clara, a simple woman whose love was richer than gold. Their chance meeting changes both of their lives forever, turning pain into hope, loneliness into love, and teaching us that true happiness doesn't come from wealth, but from the heart. Patrick sat slumped forward, his elbows resting on his knees, his expensive tailored suit wrinkled as if he had been fighting battles no one else could see. The bench was cold beneath him, its metal frame biting into his back, but he didn't move. Comfort didn't matter anymore. His eyes stared down at the dark pavement, blurred with thoughts that weighed heavier than the city's night air. A man who once owned the brightest offices in the tallest towers now sat forgotten on the roadside, just another shadow in the street. The city hummed around him, cars rushing, neon signs glowing, laughter echoing from people passing by, but none of it touched him. Patrick, the billionaire whose name once turned heads, now looked like a broken man lost in the noise of the world. He had money, yes, mansions too large for one person, cars lined up in garages he rarely used, but none of that could fill the hollow emptiness inside him tonight. The woman he loved, his fiancée, had shattered him. He thought she was his future, his light, his reason to believe in love. But when truth struck, it cut deeper than any blade. She hadn't loved him. She had loved the number in his bank account. Every laugh, every promise, every kiss had been a performance, and Patrick had been the fool who believed it. Now, sitting on the bench, he felt stripped bare, not of his wealth but of his worth. How could a man who owned so much feel so worthless? The city lights glared at him like mocking eyes, whispering reminders of his failure. He clenched his fists, but the anger melted quickly into sorrow. His heart was too tired to fight anymore. A drizzle of wind brushed through his hair, cool and sharp, but he barely noticed. He was trapped in his thoughts, suffocating in memories of a woman who never truly loved him. The pain of betrayal burned in his chest. It wasn't about the money she wanted, it was about the love she didn't. He whispered to himself, his voice broken, "I'd give away every dollar just to be loved." Truly loved. For years, people had surrounded him, business partners, employees, admirers, but not a single one saw him. They only saw what he could give them. The bench felt like punishment, a throne turned prison, once celebrated in ballrooms, now forgotten under streetlights. And yet, in this lowly moment, there was a strange honesty. For the first time, Patrick wasn't playing the role of the billionaire. He was just a man, tired, betrayed, and unbearably alone. His eyes lifted briefly, watching strangers walk by. None of them cared. None of them even slowed down. He wondered, if he disappeared tonight, would anyone notice? Would anyone mourn him? Or would his billions simply pass to greedy hands waiting in the dark? The thought chilled him more than the night air. His heart whispered a question he never thought he'd ask. Does love even exist for me? Or am I cursed to walk through life with gold in my pockets and emptiness in my soul? Patrick lowered his head again, unable to face the world. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, each one a fight against the crushing silence of loneliness. The bench creaked as he shifted, but still he remained, because he had nowhere else to go. His mansion would only remind him of lies. His businesses would remind him of people who used him. Here, at least, he could be invisible. Here, at least, the world didn't demand anything of him. Here, he was not Patrick the billionaire. He was Patrick the broken man. And yet, somewhere deep inside, beneath the ashes of betrayal, a fragile hope flickered. Maybe, just maybe, life wasn't done with him yet. But for now he sat, eyes empty, shoulders heavy, waiting for nothing and no one, not knowing that destiny was about to change everything, not knowing that soon, a woman with nothing to give but kindness would give him the one thing he had searched for his entire life. Not money, not power, but love, pure, unshakable, and true. Clara walked slowly along the cracked sidewalk, her grocery bag tucked carefully against her side. It wasn't heavy, just bread, some fruit, and milk, But for her, each item inside was a small victory, bought after a week of hard work at the diner. The night air wrapped around her, cool and still, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Her shoes were worn, her coat a little too thin, but her spirit carried a warmth money couldn't buy. Clara had lived a life where every penny mattered. Bills came faster than her paychecks, and dreams always seemed one step out of reach. Yet, despite her struggles, she carried kindness in her heart, like others carried gold in their pockets. Her friends often told her she was too soft, too caring, too willing to notice people others ignored. But Clara never believed kindness was weakness. To her, it was strength, the only strength she had left to fight the bitterness of the world. As she walked past the glowing streetlights, her eyes caught a figure on the bench. A man, his head bowed, shoulders slumped, his expensive suit out of place in the lonely street. Most people would have glanced once and kept moving. Some might have assumed he was drunk, others might have thought he was dangerous. But Clara's steps slowed. Something about him stopped her in her tracks. There was a heaviness in his posture, a silence around him that whispered louder than words. She looked closer. His shoes alone could pay her rent for months. His watch gleamed faintly under the lamp. He wasn't homeless, he wasn't poor, and yet he looked poorer than anyone she had ever seen. Her heart tugged, urging her not to walk away. Clara knew what loneliness felt like, the kind that crept into your bones when the world was too busy to see you. She couldn't bear to leave someone drowning in it. She hesitated for a moment, her mind whispering, "Don't get involved. He's a stranger. It's none of your business." But her heart, stronger than reason, pushed her forward. She took a step, then another, until she was standing close enough to hear his quiet, uneven breaths. "Are you okay?" Her voice came out soft, almost unsure, but filled with genuine concern. The man lifted his head slowly, as if the weight of it was too much. Their eyes met. His were stormy, tired, lost. Eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little. Clara's chest tightened. Whoever he was broken, and she couldn't just keep walking. The silence stretched between them, but she didn't move. She didn't flinch. Instead, she gave him a small, gentle smile, the kind of smile that didn't ask for anything, didn't expect anything. It simply said, "I see you, you matter." Patrick blinked, almost startled. Strangers usually looked at him with greed, awe, or envy. No one ever looked at him with kindness. For a brief second, the emptiness inside him cracked, and a tiny sliver of warmth slipped in. Clara shifted her grocery bag nervously, wondering if she had intruded. But she couldn't take her words back, and truthfully, she didn't want to. Something about him told her he needed someone tonight, not someone rich, not someone perfect, just someone who cared. And Clara, a girl with nothing but compassion to give, was willing to be that person. In that moment, she didn't see a billionaire. She didn't see a man in a suit. She only saw a human being sitting in the shadows, fighting a battle no one else could see. And that was enough for her to stay. Clara hesitated only for a moment before slowly lowering herself onto the bench beside him. The metal was cold, but the silence between them was colder. Patrick didn't turn away, but his eyes still carried that emptiness, as though he had fallen into a place no one could reach. Clara's fingers tightened around her grocery bag. Inside was a simple dinner she had been looking forward to after a long, tiring shift at the diner. A sandwich. Nothing fancy. Just bread, a little cheese, and lettuce. To most, it was ordinary. To her, it was survival. But looking at the man beside her, she felt a strange pull. Something told her he needed it more than she did. She opened the bag slowly, unwrapped the sandwich, and then held it out toward him with trembling hands. Her voice was shy, almost apologetic. "I don't have much, but maybe you could share this with me." Patrick blinked, stunned. In all his life, people had given him gifts, yes, but always with a price. They offered him favors, luxury, even affection, but each kindness had strings tied to it, always. But this woman, a stranger, was offering him half of her meal. No hidden agenda, no expectation, just pure, uncalculated generosity. For a moment, his pride almost rose. A billionaire? Accepting food from a diner waitress? The thought should have embarrassed him. But strangely, it didn't. It humbled him. It softened him. His lips parted and his voice came out rough. You want to share that with me? Clara gave a small smile. Everyone needs to eat. And you look like you need this more than I do tonight. Her words struck him harder than she knew. He wasn't starving for food. He was starving for kindness, for connection, for someone to look at him and not see a dollar sign. Slowly, almost reverently, Patrick accepted the sandwich. Their hands brushed for the briefest second, and Clara felt a jolt of warmth, though she quickly looked away. He held the sandwich as though it was a priceless treasure, not cheap bread wrapped in paper. He took a small bite, the taste plain but somehow richer than anything he had ever eaten at a five-star restaurant. Why? Because it wasn't the food that fed him, it was the care behind it. He swallowed hard, emotions knotting in his chest. "Thank you," he whispered, the words almost breaking. Clara didn't reply with grand speeches. She simply unwrapped her half of the sandwich and began eating beside him. The city noises faded. For a while, there was only the quiet rhythm of two strangers chewing under a flickering streetlight. But in that silence, something unspoken grew. A fragile thread connected them. Two broken lives meeting on the same bench, sharing more than just food. Patrick found himself glancing at her, watching the way she chewed thoughtfully, the way her hair framed her tired yet gentle face. Clara, too, felt his gaze, but she didn't turn away. For once, she didn't feel nervous. She felt safe. When their eyes met, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to, because in that simple act of sharing, a new beginning was quietly being written. Patrick, the man who thought he had everything, realized he had been starving for the one thing money could never buy: genuine kindness. And Clara, the girl who had so little, realized that sometimes the smallest gift could reach the deepest part of a person's soul. The sandwich was gone within minutes, but the warmth it brought remained, lingering in the air between them like an unspoken promise. Patrick leaned back slightly, his chest feeling lighter than it had in weeks. "That was the best meal I've had in years." Clara chuckled softly, shaking her head. "It's just bread and cheese." But Patrick shook his head, his eyes softening. "No, it was more than that." Clara didn't ask what he meant. She just smiled faintly, her heart strangely full. And on that cold bench, with nothing but crumbs between them, two lives quietly shifted closer, without either of them realizing it. The hours slipped by without either of them noticing. The street grew quieter, the traffic thinning, the shops closing one by one. But on that bench, it was as if time had frozen, two strangers lost in a conversation that grew deeper with every word. Clara told him about her life, about the diner where she worked double shifts, the aching feet she carried home each night, the tiny apartment where silence often felt too loud. She admitted her dreams, too, the kind she rarely told anyone, afraid they'd laugh. "I want to open a bakery someday," she confessed, her eyes glowing softly. "A place that smells like fresh bread in the morning, where people feel at home the moment they walk in." Patrick listened, his heart caught by the sincerity in her voice. No greed, no hidden motive, just a girl with a dream, clinging to it with everything she had. For years, Patrick had sat at tables with investors who only cared about multiplying wealth. Yet here was Clara, speaking of warmth, comfort, and love, as if those were worth more than all the money in the world. The thought shook him. She looked at him curiously then, tilting her head. "What about you? What do you do?" Patrick froze. The question he usually answered with pride now felt heavy, like a confession. He considered lying, brushing it off, telling her he worked in business, nothing more. But something about Clara made lying impossible. Her eyes were too honest, her heart too genuine. He drew in a shaky breath. I own companies. A lot of them. To be exact, I'm a billionaire." The words hung between them like a secret too big for the night to hold. Clara blinked. For a moment, silence wrapped them both. Then, instead of gasping, instead of grabbing his hand with excitement or asking for favors, she laughed softly. "You don't look like one tonight," she said, her smile gentle, teasing but kind. Patrick let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. For the first time, his wealth hadn't impressed or intimidated someone. It had simply existed, nothing more. "You're not shocked?" he asked, his voice cautious. Clara shook her head. "Money doesn't surprise me. People do." Her words pierced his heart, raw and true. For years, he had been seen as a wallet, not a man. But Clara had looked at him and seen loneliness, seen hunger, seen pain. And instead of asking for anything, she had offered him half her dinner. Patrick felt his throat tighten. He had been betrayed by the woman he thought he loved, used by people who pretended to care, surrounded by luxury, but starved of love. And here was Clara, real, unpolished, with tired eyes and calloused hands, giving him more in one night than anyone else had in years. He looked at her, his chest heavy with emotion. "You're right," he whispered. "Money can't fix loneliness." Clara didn't flinch at the sadness in his voice. Instead, she leaned back against the bench and sighed. "That's because loneliness isn't about where you live or what you own. It's about whether anyone truly sees you." Patrick's eyes burned, but he forced the tears back. No one had ever spoken to him like this. No one had dared to look past the surface, past the suit, past the name, but Clara had. And in that moment, Patrick knew something had shifted forever. For the first time, he wasn't Patrick the billionaire. He was just Patrick, a man broken by betrayal, healed by kindness, seen by a woman who had nothing but still gave him everything. And in the soft glow of the streetlight, he realized that maybe, just maybe, love had found him when he least expected it. The days turned into weeks, and still Patrick found himself returning to that same old bench. It was strange. He had boardrooms waiting for him, mansions filled with priceless art, cars that purred like lions. Yet none of it gave him the comfort that one simple meeting with Clara did. That bench, worn and ordinary, became the only place where he felt human again. And Clara, sweet, selfless Clara, was always there. Sometimes she carried coffee in her hands, steam rising like little promises of warmth in the night air. Sometimes Patrick brought nothing but silence, his heavy thoughts weighing him down, and she would simply sit with him, saying nothing but giving everything. Slowly, a rhythm grew between them, one not built on wealth or contracts, but on laughter, shared stories, and long silences that felt like music. Patrick began to notice things about her, the way her hair caught the light, the way she laughed with her whole heart, the way her eyes held strength even when her life held struggle. She never asked about his money. She never hinted at wanting anything. Instead, she asked him things no one else dared to. "Do you ever get tired of pretending you're okay? Do you ever wish you could trade places with someone who has less but feels more?" Those questions shook him. They peeled away the armor he had built around himself. Patrick realized that Clara didn't see the billionaire. She didn't care about the empire he owned. She saw the man behind it all, the man who was tired, broken, and desperately longing to be loved for himself. One evening, as they sat side by side, Patrick reached out without thinking. His hand found hers on the bench. Clara froze for a moment, then let her fingers relax in his. It wasn't fireworks, it wasn't grand. It was simple, quiet, real. And yet, it meant more to Patrick than any diamond ring or luxury gift he had ever given. "Clara," he whispered, his voice trembling as though carrying a secret too heavy. "You've given me something no one else ever could." Her brow furrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" He looked at her with eyes unguarded. "Peace and love. Not the kind that comes with expectations, but the kind that makes me want to be better. Just to deserve you." Clara's cheeks flushed, her heart racing at his words. She had never thought of herself as special. She was just a girl with small dreams and big bills. But sitting there with Patrick, she realized that love didn't measure itself in wealth or power. It measured itself in truth. Patrick leaned closer, his hand tightening around hers. "For years, I thought money was enough. I thought success would fill the emptiness inside me, but it never did. You, Clara, you've given me something no amount of money can buy." Her lips parted, but words wouldn't come. Her heart was too full. She could see it in his eyes, the sincerity, the rawness, the vulnerability he showed only to her. In that moment, she understood. She wasn't just helping a broken man heal. She was becoming the reason he believed in love again. And deep inside her chest, something bloomed, fragile but undeniable. It wasn't pity, it wasn't charity, it was love. Love, quiet and steady, weaving itself into both their souls without permission. And as the city hummed softly around them, Patrick and Clara sat hand in hand, two souls finally finding what they had been searching for all along. Not money, not power, not success, but a love that money could never, ever buy. Months passed, and what began as a chance meeting on a lonely bench grew into something neither Patrick nor Clara could have imagined. The man who once sat broken under city lights now walked with new strength in his steps, not because his businesses were thriving, but because his heart was finally alive. Clara, who had always carried her world alone, found herself sharing her burdens with someone who listened, truly listened, and cared more for her dreams than his own empire. One morning, Patrick took Clara to a quiet corner of the city. There stood a small building, old and unused, its windows dusty, its walls worn. Clara tilted her head, curious. "Why are we here?" Patrick smiled softly, his hand brushing hers. "Because dreams deserve a home, and yours deserves to live." He opened the door, revealing a space he had carefully restored. Polished counters, ovens waiting to be lit, shelves ready for bread, pies, and pastries. Clara gasped, her hand covering her mouth. "Patrick, is this—" "Yes," he said simply. "Your bakery, your dream, your beginning." Tears welled in her eyes. She had never asked for this. She had never wanted his money. But Patrick's gift wasn't just about wealth. It was about belief. Belief in her. Her arms wrapped around him tightly, her voice breaking. "I don't need riches, Patrick. I just need you." He held her close, his lips near her ear, whispering, "And you have me, always." Their story never appeared in headlines, never filled magazines. But inside that little bakery, people saw something rarer than luxury. They saw love in its purest form. Patrick, the billionaire who once sat broken on a bench, now wiped tables, poured coffee, and laughed with customers, not as a man of power, but as a man in love. Clara, once the tired waitress, now welcomed people with bread warm from the oven, her smile brighter than any chandelier. And together they showed that wealth was not measured in dollars, but in the kindness we give and the love we share. The community whispered about them, not in gossip, but in admiration. They said, "Here is a man who had everything but found happiness in the arms of a woman who had nothing." And they said, "Here is a woman who gave nothing but kindness, and in return gained the heart of a man who once thought he was unlovable." Patrick often looked back at that night, the bench, the darkness, the weight of betrayal. And he always whispered to himself, "That was the night my life truly began." Clara would smile at him, knowing she too had found something greater than she ever dreamed. A love that was real, honest, and unbreakable. The lesson was clear. Money can build houses, but love makes them homes. Money can buy jewels, but kindness makes hearts shine. Money can fill pockets, but only compassion can fill souls. And as Patrick and Clara stood side by side in their little bakery, hand in hand, hearts entwined, they became living proof that society must learn. It isn't wealth that heals loneliness. It's love, always love.